I've taken the petrol cap off, which is only held on with 4 Phillips head screws, and that came off rather easily. And I've now siphoned out over a gallon of fuel and put it in a proper jerry can. You don't need to take the tank off the bike to do this job. The fuel pump itself, which is this, with the crinkly edge, is housed in a plastic locator, and if you can see where I've removed it, it has a tag here. There's one on either side, and basically you just pinch it together and then it will pop out, and that means you can then get onto the hose clip, which I've undone with a 7mm socket, and then this hose will just come off. Once you've pulled the pipe off, you need to take off the 2 electrical connections. So what they've actually done to make sure you can't connect it up wrong is this is a larger screw thread than this one. This needs an 8mm socket to get off, and this needs a 7mm socket to get off. So effectively you can't put it together the wrong way around. That's worth knowing. So that's designed so it just comes out. And there's another pipe on the bottom that we need to disconnect. That looks like it just pulls off like that. Right, there we go. Now that is in amazing condition. My bike is 30 years old, and it's done something like 85,000 miles. You'd expect that to be really rank, but it's actually incredibly good condition. Makes you wonder whether it's been replaced before. Now this is an incredibly tight fit in here, so it seems to me that you have to take the plastic flange off in order to release the rubber, in order to get it out without damaging any of it. The filter on the end is in really good condition, and I do not want to split that because I imagine that's really hard to get hold of. So we'll undo all these and it should then come apart. Right, that's just about ready to come apart, and the interesting thing is the washers are little hat washers, so you mustn't lose those. Keep them all safe. I should be able to now just ease that off. Doing this with one hand, which is not recommended, but yeah, that should come off alright. Okay, with that eased off, just keep doing this a little bit, and then it finally pops off. There's a little bit of corrosion in there, which is a bit worrying. I can't see why you should have it in there. Everything should be kind of fuel proof and corrosion proof, but maybe it's just particles in the fuel that have got into it and then corroded. Right, to get this out, you just gently twist it and pull it and twist it and pull it. You can see there's some corrosion in there holding it in, so be gentle because you don't want to damage it, but otherwise it's relatively easy. Right, and there it is. Actually looks like the inside of an aquarium filter. Same kind of effect. That's all in really good condition. That's your genuine Bosch pump, so I've got a feeling that's probably the original. As I say, these are 250 quid. You can get a patent part for about 140, or you can get a generic one for 40. So, well, now I've got the pump off the bike, I can see that it is actually marked plus and minus, but not in a way that's really easy to work out. I mean, that could be a defect in the plastic, couldn't it? I'm going to put this across another battery and test whether it actually works. Okay, so I've jumped this directly to a spare battery that I've got, which is a low powered one that's got worn out, and I found that if I put the power on it, it works. The pump itself works, which means that it's the electrics not supplying the pump. So now that I know that the pump works, I've got to find out what is it on the bike that stopped it working. Now you might think, why have you done it in this arse about face way? Firstly, I needed to check the pump because that was the obvious thing that wasn't working. When you turned the bike over, you could not hear it firing up. Secondly, when you're riding down the road and it cuts out, and you can hear that the pump isn't working, the first thing you're going to think of is the pump. Finally, it all needed maintaining and cleaning anyway. But that's actually saved me a lot of money doing this, because I now know that the pump is sound. I've got to find out where the electrical connections have failed to feed it. When you come to put this back together, note that there is a little location arrow. There's a plastic lip in there with a little channel lock, so make sure you put it back the right way round. Also make sure that this outlet lines up with this plastic port for the outlet pipe. You'll need to dip the body in petrol before you put it back together, otherwise it just sticks like hell and it won't go back. You can see here some of these little top hat washers have actually corroded quite badly, so I'm going to wire brush and scrape those clean before they go back on. There's still a fair bit of fuel in the tank that I couldn't siphon out because it just wouldn't come out. And I've also noticed there's quite a few dirty particles, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to get the fuel out and get the dirt out. Of course, anything that's metallic I can just use a magnet to pick out, but a lot of it looks like grit. I put my magnet on a stick into the crud that's in the tank, and as you can see, quite a lot of it is stuck to the magnet, which means it's actually rust. Well, none of the components inside can really rust, so they've either come from the fuel or from failing fixings. I'm not really sure where from, but I'm definitely going to get that all out. This is my oil suction pump that I use for doing the gearboxes, and I found it will also suck out petrol. And you can see that that petrol is pretty clean, so I'll just strain that back into the can and use it again later on. I've lent the bike over on its side stand so I can get out as much petrol as possible, and I'm just left with a tiny little puddle which has also got all of the sediment in it. Well, this is what it should look like just before it goes back in. Those two arrows are lined up. This is lined up with the overflow inside. This is a breather pipe. Make sure you put the breather pipe on. Then we put on the two electrics. They can only go on one way, and then the fuel pipe goes on there. So what I've discovered by removing the pump from the bike and putting it directly across the battery is there's nothing wrong with the pump, it's actually the wiring. So I've had to take the wiring loom out, and the wiring loom also incorporates the float. And what I found is that the black wire is run through the sleeve into the kind of mass of very bad soldering there on my 1987 component, and then comes out the other side. Now I've actually stripped it so we can see all the different colours, and the reason I've done this is because somewhere in there is a break, and I've actually put little slits here and there just to try and get a connection. So my opinion is actually broken inside there, in which case I can't do anything about that and I'll have to get another one. What I have found is that if you put a meter across the black one, you will get a reading. By puggling about in there, you'll get a reading off there, but you'll get absolutely no reading off the one that looks brown but is actually yellow.